Alright, so today we're going to learn how to magnetize the Hive Tyrant so we can run him in any of his configurations. So by the end, we'll be able to run him as the normal Hive Tyrant with whatever arms or weapons we want to give him, the Swarmlord, or the Winged Hive Tyrant with whatever arms or weapons we want to give him. We're going to magnetize everything. So of course, what you will need is some magnets. So I have some 2x1mm magnets. I ordered a bunch of these, so I probably have 500 inside this box. They're not very big, so we probably won't use a whole lot of these. They won't be strong enough. They're more meant for like the infantry. I used it to magnetize my Space Marines. That's kind of how small they are, just the 3 on the tip there, so they are very small. I also have the 3x1mm magnets, which is what the rest of these magnets are on this long strip. I also have 5x1mm magnets. Some more 3x1mm here and 5x1mm up top there. I have these giant ones, which I first bought from Michael's, like the craft store, but they're just too big to really use anything. But we might use 1 or 2 here. I don't know the size of these. They're gigantic though. And then we have some 6x2mm magnets. So for the big pieces, we'll probably be using these. They're probably the biggest that'll fit anywhere without being able to be seen. Alright, so one of the first things you want to do whenever you're going to fully magnetize a kit for all the options is you want to go through and look at which components are shared by the other options. Didn't know what to say there. So the first thing I noticed was this A10. This A10, basically you follow the same steps. Building the legs, building the body, putting the tail on till you get to that point. And then you do the Hive Tyrant specifically. So you put the guns on, you put his melee weapons on, yada yada. Till you get to, your finished Hive Tyrant. Basically you do all the same, uses all the same body, tail, all those components. The Swarmlord just gets a different head, and he uses different swords. Even his little shoulder pads are different. So we're gonna come up with something creative at that point to even be able to use those. But the difference is once we get to the Winged Hive Tyrant. So the Winged Hive Tyrant uses this A10 piece, the spine or hips, whatever. Uses the exact same body. It's got a different tail. It's got different legs. Shares the same head as the normal Hive Tyrant. So that'll be really easy. We'll just have 2 heads, so we'll magnetize the head for sure. And in all his arm sockets, wings, and weapons are going to be magnetized. So it'll be pretty easy to swap them over, almost like a little transformer. So what I might end up doing is gluing all the body together, gluing it to these hip parts, and then magnetizing this hip joint into the tail, I guess, let's say. I started with just marking a black hole and kind of a meaty part that kind of lined up with the tail meaty part. I'm going to use a 5x1mm magnet, so, I didn't want it to poke through, so that's me kind of test fitting it. I used a 13/64 drill bit, slightly bigger than 5mm, so that's me kind of lining it up to see if I like the location and try to make sure I'm not, starting the hole too high or too low. Whenever you drill anything, you want to start a pilot hole. In the plastic, you want to use a hobby knife, really kind of ream it out, and then I step it up to like a 2mm in the pin vise there, just to get a really nice pilot hole. That's about the biggest bit that fits in the pin vise, so I'm just kind of using this 1364 by hand, which is fine if you have a nice pilot hole started already. It's not going to jump around or anything, which is the biggest reason. You want the pin vise to start with, but I'm just being careful, and I find when they're metal bits, right? So they're trying to take out big chunks. So they do at the start there. You want to grab a lot of plastic, and I found if you just pull back once you feel that resistance, it'll kind of peel all that plastic out, and won't just keep going too deep. And then of course you want to test fit the magnet, make sure it's in all the way, so it sits flush. That wasn't deep enough, so I went back to the 5 mil drill bit, and I'm just using light pressure. And if I feel too much resistance, I stop. Another test fit. Oh, that's me putting the black. So I always put one side black, and that's usually the side that goes into the plastic, just to get polarity right. So I glued it in there, and then I'm just pressing the tail against it to make sure it is flush and it's not holding up at all. And then sometimes the hole gets a little bigger than the magnet, or kind of out of round per se. So if you press the leg piece against it, it kind of sets it exactly where it needs to be. I screwed up at this point. I actually used plastic glue by accident. I was just like excited, I guess, and totally forgot to use super glue. So you'll see me pull that magnet out and re-glue it. But here we go on the leg piece. So again, I just put a black dot, and I kind of lined it up just by eye, honestly. Your eye is actually very accurate if you learn to trust it. So again, starting the little pilot hole with the hobby knife, rounding it out, going to the 2 mil drill bit and the pin vise, just to get a nice deep center hole, I guess, started. And then going in with the 5 mil. And again, when you see those grabbing those big chunks, just don't apply pressure. Actually, pull back, and it'll kind of clean them all up and make it a real hole. And then you can kind of start drilling by hand. Just putting the finishing touches on that tail, ready to glue that magnet in. And I think here's where I try and test fit it and realize I glued the other one in with plastic glue. Finished drilling that hole anyways, or getting it close. Properly glue the magnet in with super glue. So I kind of fucked up the recording, but this is it finished. So we have the leg glued onto the tail, and then the magnet inside the tail. And then we have the other side, the little hip with the magnet in each side, and the other tail piece. So we have all the polarities going one way, and that'll help kind of keep everything bonded too. So I haven't glued the tail yet, but even just with these magnets, it's strong enough to hold this piece together. I'm still going to glue the tail and glue all the components on, and then I'll just be able to pull that out and stick it in the tail for the winged Hive Tyrant. So we will get the next steps started, and I'll see you in a minute. Next, we're going to magnetize the head to the body, so both the Hive Tyrant and the Swarmlord's heads. will be magnetized individually. Starting the pilot hole with the hobby knife. I didn't do my classic Sharpie black dot. I was kind of in a rush. Enlarge the pilot hole with the 2mm drill bit, which is actually a 5/64 drill bit. Drill that to depth. We're going to be using a 3mm by 1mm magnet, so we're drilling a mil down. Jump up to the 3mm drill bit, which is actually a 1/8 drill bit. It's pushing a little hard. It's pulling up like big chunks of plastic. So I could have easily messed it up, but I managed to hold it together, and didn't turn out too bad, pretty straight on. Remember to test fit your magnet, and use super glue. I just dropped the magnet into his neck socket, tried to push into the hole with my finger, had to find something non-metallic to kind of push it in all the way. Wipe the excess super glue out with some paper towel. Used his head to make sure the magnet kind of sat flush with the neck. I kind of left a little super glue on the neck. That's why I pull it away quick, because you don't want to actually glue the head in there. I kind of use the super glue to see where I'm going to be drilling the hole. So I tried to use my shitty hobby knife. That's super dull, but as you can see, it slipped a bunch. It didn't cut me because it is that dull. So then I smartened up and used a sharp knife. So always use a sharp knife. Some of the worst cuts you can get are because you're using a dull knife. Enlarge the pilot hole with a 2mm 5/64 drill bit. Once you got that, drill to the depth of 1mm approximately, step it up to the 3mm drill bit or the 1/8 drill bit. I was unnecessarily rushing with this head, so you can see the big chunks of plastic I'm pulling out just because I'm pressing too hard. The hole ended up being a little bit off center. It didn't really matter in the end. Check your depth. I just dropped another little magnet in there and Sharpie the top of it so I can make sure to get the correct polarity. Super glue it into the head and push it flush, set it aside, and we'll start working on the other head immediately. I tried harder to make sure the hole was centered, so I took my time and I wasn't rushing. And I think I got it bang on. So if you want to do a really good job, just take your time. So trying to pull back on the drill bit anytime you feel resistance. It still wants to take big chunks out just because it is plastic and it is a metal drill bit. But just take your time. The magnet in, of course, and set it aside until the super glue is dry. Here's the Swarmlord head. Works pretty good. Even with the offset magnet, you'd never know. So only if you're a perfectionist does it really matter if everything's perfectly straight. So on the right here, we have the normal Hive Tyrant, winged Hive Tyrant head, and then on the left we have the Swarmlord head. So you can see I had to up along the hole to try and get the magnet center. It's still about perfectly center, but the swarm or the Hive Tyrant head is pretty bang on. Once you put them on the body, they both kind of fit the same. You know, you do a couple of poses. Okay, so now we're going to do basically what we just did with the Swarmlord normal Hive Tyrant legs, but with the winged Hive Tyrant tail. So we're going to line up the magnets on the hip, lower spine, lumbar joint with the rest of the tail here. So we're going to do the same thing to line it up. We're just going to kind of put a black dot, and start drilling. But one thing is it's a lot thinner here on the winged Hive Tyrant. So I'm going to glue the leg on, and then that way it'll give us some extra plastic to drill into in case we start to poke through. And then that way it'll line up as well, and we won't have to try and drill this out and then drill into the leg and line it all up. We're going to glue the leg on and then drill through both if we need to with the 5 by 1 millimeter magnet. Alright, so we have the winged Hive Tyrant legs and tail all glued together, both the magnets in place, and then the previously completed Hive Tyrant Swarmlord legs all glued together. I ended up taking the body and gluing it on the hips there. I thought about magnetizing it as well so I could do some different poses, but kind of decided against it. There's already enough stuff that's magnetized that I just wanted it to be nice and strong, so I ended up gluing it on there. And as you can see, you can easily just take the body off, put it on the winged Hive Tyrant legs, or take it off and put it on the Swarmlord / normal Hive Tyrant legs. So it would be super easy to switch. I ended up buying some extra 60 mil bases. So I'm going to glue each of these onto their own base. But I don't really mind about the storage, so that's not a big deal for me. I just rather have them. I thought about magnetizing them to the bases, but again, for the winged Hive Tyrant at least, there's going to be so much weight up here that I think it'll be hard to magnetize them and have them sturdy. And, you know, you still want to be able to pick it up and move it around when you're playing. So I just bought the extra bases, and we're just going to glue them right on. Off camera, I started magnetizing the arms and started with the wings. They are going to be the trickiest thing just because there's so much weight up here, right? So I started off just using 6 mil by 2 mil, so that size. And after I glued the magnet in and glued the same style magnet to the wing, it wasn't quite strong enough to hold the wing up without rotating. So again, off camera, I took that magnet out, and I'm gonna try these ones. These ones I just got at Michael's or whatever craft store. They're slightly bigger than the 6 mil. If I were to guess, it'd be 7x4 just by eyeballing it. But so we're gonna glue this magnet in here. I already have the one glued on to the wing, and just to give it some more, like basically like a frictional support, I want to be able to glue the magnet on this side like deeper in there, so you see how far I can push it in, like quite a bit. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to drill out this side, and then for these lower arms, since they'll never be receptacles for the wings, I am going to still use these 6x2 mil magnets, because I tested those out, and those will hold the arms up with no issue. So we're going to drill all the way through here again. We're going to end up filling the body with probably milliput. I do have green stuff too, but it's just a little pricier. Milliput's just a little softer, easier to work with, and less expensive in my area anyways. So we're going to drill out this hole. We're going to fill the whole body cavity up, basically to the point where I can stick another magnet on this end of the wing, and I'll be able to form press it into the hole to kind of make, once all the milliput is in there, a little receptacle. And then after I do that on both sides, I will let the milliput dry, and then I'll glue it all the way in. And what that'll do is it'll hide both magnets, and then this outer magnet, holy fuck, I had too much coffee today, that's why I'm all shaking. This outer magnet will get some friction from the body to kind of hold it up. And hopefully that'll be good enough to hold the wings up decently enough that they're not always trying to fall down, right? So yeah, I'm going to put it in time-lapse mode. I'm going to drill those out, the bottom ones. Again, for the bottom, we're just going to be using the smaller 6x2 mil, and then the bigger ones, 7x4 mils is my best guess. And we'll check back in after it's done and see how well we did.